we're starting our new read aloud, Who Was Ben Franklin, by Dennis Brindell Fradin, illustrated by John O'Brien. Who was Ben Franklin? Ben Franklin was a man of many talents. He was a statesman. Perhaps only George Washington did more than Ben Franklin did to free the United States from England. He was a scientist. For one thing, Ben discovered the nature of lightning. He was an inventor. Thanks to him, we have lightning rods and bifocal glasses. He was an author. He wrote a famous book about his experiences. And people still use the phrase, haste makes waste, and other sayings that Ben made popular. Ben did much more in his long life. He began America's first general hospital. He started one of America's first libraries. He helped create the United States Postal Service. Ben did so much that some people claimed he had magical powers. But he was a flesh and blood person. In fact, his life was often sad. As a youth, he ran away from home because he was beaten. Later, he lived far away from his wife, and a fight over politics came between Ben and his son. This is the true story of Ben Franklin, statesman, scientist, inventor, author, and human being. Chapter 1, Catching Lightning in a Bottle. On a June day in 1752, a storm approached Philadelphia. The sky grew dark. As thunder rattled the windows, people ran inside. But in a house at the corner of Race and 2nd Streets, two people were getting ready to go outside. One was 46-year-old Benjamin Franklin. The other was Ben's 21-year-old son, William. Silk kite. This is the metal rod, tail, cord, key, and the silk string. Billy picked up a strange-looking kite. His father had made it for just such a stormy day as this. A metal wire stuck out at the top of the kite. A metal house key was tied to the end of the kite string. Ben grabbed a jar and put it under his coat. The pair dashed through the rain with the kite and the bottle. They stopped when they came to a field. Billy ran across the field 3 times trying to fly the kite. Finally, the wind did its work. Up soared the kite, higher and higher. Soon it was just a speck in the clouds. Ben took the kite string from his son. Then they went into a nearby shed and waited. As Ben held the kite string, they both felt excited and scared. With his son's help, Ben was trying to answer an old question. Were lightning and electricity the same thing? Ben suspected that they were. He hoped that flying the kite in the storm would prove it. Ben believed that electricity and thunderclouds could cause lightning. The wire on their kite would draw electricity from a cloud, Benjamin hoped. The electricity would run down the kite string to the key. There it would make a spark that he would feel. But the experiment was dangerous. What if a giant lightning bolt struck the kite? The current might kill Ben, and perhaps Billy as well. As the lightning flashed nearer, Benjamin touched the key. He felt no electric spark. He tried again. Still, he felt nothing. Finally, the storm seemed to be overhead. Ben and Billy held their breath as a black cloud swallowed the kite. Benjamin pressed the key. Nothing. Then suddenly, he felt a tingle. He had felt shocks like this before in his lab. A spark from the cloud had electrified the kite. The spark had zoomed down the wet string into the metal key where Ben could feel it. With Billy's help, he had proved that lightning was electricity. But the father and son weren't done. Ben took the bottle from beneath his coat. This is a Leyden jar. Here's the wire, here's the water, and here's some metal foil. It was called a Leyden jar and it stored electricity. The glass jar had a metal rod sticking out of it. Ben touched the rod of the Leyden jar with the key. The electricity flowed from the key into the bottle. When he finished putting the electricity into the jar, he reeled in the kite. Then Ben and his son went home with the kite and the bottle of electricity. News of the experiment spread. Ben Franklin became famous for proving that lightning was electricity, but he wasn't satisfied. Now he wanted to make lightning less dangerous. Within a short time, he invented the lightning rod. A metal rod was fixed to the top of a building. When any lightning hit the rod, it would run into the ground through a wire. The building and the people inside would not be harmed. Ben placed a lightning rod on his house. By the end of 1752, other Philadelphia buildings, including the state capitol, also had them. Lightning rods were later put up around the world. The kite experiment made Ben a famous scientist. His lightning rod made him a famous inventor. He was showered with medals and awards. Because Ben had made lightning less of a danger, some people called him a magician or wizard. People who knew him laughed at such talk. To them, he was the same Ben Franklin they had always known. He was brilliant, to be sure, but he was definitely a man and not a wizard. Chapter 2, Young Ben. Benjamin Franklin was born in a house on Milk Street in Boston, Massachusetts, on January 17, 1706. There wasn't any United States yet. Massachusetts belonged to England. It was one of England's 13 American colonies. Ben's family was large, very large. He was number 15 in a family with 17 children. As often happened back then, 4 of the children died young. His parents, Josiah and Abia Franklin, were not rich. Still, they got by. Josiah ran a shop called the Blue Ball. He made and sold candles and soap there. Next to the shop was a family home. It was just 2 rooms downstairs and 2 upstairs. Young Ben shared a bed with a brother or 2. Josiah and Abia wanted Ben to become a minister, but Ben had 2 strikes against him. First, he had been born on a Sunday. Many people believed that a Sunday baby was a child of the devil. Also, he was left-handed. That was said to be another mark of the devil. His father punished Ben when he caught him throwing a ball or writing with his left hand. It didn't work. Ben was a lefty for life. Something else made his parents doubt that Ben would make a good minister. He was a smart aleck. For example, every evening Josiah said a long prayer before supper. One day, Ben's father was packing fish into a barrel. Why didn't his father say grace over all the fish in the barrel at once? Ben suggested. Then Josiah would not have to waste time saying grace at each evening meal. For his smart remark, Ben received a slap. Ben went to school for just 2 years, starting at age 8. He failed arithmetic, but did well at handwriting and reading. Ben loved books. He read the few books that his family owned. Then he borrowed books from his neighbors. Often he sat up reading most of the night. He also loved the outdoors. Swimming and kite flying were his favorite sports. Ben's first invention was for swimming. He made 4 paddles that slipped over his hands and feet. The paddles helped him swim faster. Ben always looked for new ways to do things. One windy day, he was flying a kite with a friend. They came to a pond. Ben had an idea. He took off his clothes and gave them to his friend. Then Ben lay back in the water and held on to his kite. As the wind blew the kite, he was towed across the pond. Ben decided to become a sailor when he grew up. His parents didn't want him to go to sea. In those days, not many children stayed in school for long. At the age of 10, Ben was taken out of school. His parents put him to work in the shop. Ben cut candle wicks and poured wax into candle molds. Josiah hoped that one day Ben would take over the shop, but Ben hated candle making. 2 years went by and nothing changed. Ben still hated the work. He wasn't going to follow in his father's footsteps. His parents decided that Ben must become an apprentice. This was common for boys in in colonial days. Candle making. Tallow, solid animal fat from sheep and cattle, or whale oil is heated in a copper vat and impurities are skimmed off. The hot tallow is poured into molds that are prepared with wicks. The molds are then transferred to cold water for hardening. An apprentice had to work without pay for a skilled craftsman. In return, the craftsman taught the apprentice his trade. After about 7 years, the young man would be ready to earn money at the trade. But what trade should Ben learn? Josiah took Ben to many different shops. They visited a furniture maker and a bricklayer. They went to see a brass worker. They called on men who made pottery and silverware. Nothing appealed to Ben. His mother and father had one more idea. Ben had a brother, James, who was 9 years older than he. James was a printer. He already had an apprentice or two. However, James needed more help in his printing shop. Ben did not want to work for his brother. Still, it seemed better than laying bricks or making silverware. Besides, his father wasn't going to take no for an answer any longer. So in 1718, 12-year-old Ben Franklin was apprenticed to his brother James. Papers were signed. He was to work for James for 9 years until he was 21 years old. Hmm. So let's think about that. So Ben only went to school for 2 years, and he wasn't very good at math, but he was good at reading and handwriting. Funny that such a bad student became such an important person in our US history, huh?